Welcome back. All right, so I'm going to talk about Tampa. I'm also going to say I do find the comment section under my St. Louis video funny because there's a lot of, well, our team's been dealing with a lot of injuries too. Well, our team's been, yes. Almost every team in the league has dealt with a long injured list at some point this season. And again, this is just, it's going to be this way for the rest of the season in all likelihood. For Tampa, they've had some key injuries, but the depth of the injuries, it really depends on the day. Cirelli appears to be ready to come back. That's going to be huge for them. And so we'll see. And I depending on the list you look at right now, Bogosian might be listed. He might not be listed. So he might be good to go tomorrow. This is why reporting on injury news can be, it can be frustrating. Because like one site will say this guy's out for a week. Another site will say day to day. And then you'll hear, well, their beat reporter just said he's good to go tomorrow. So I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So 17-6-4 for Tampa. Where are they at? Because we all know that with Tampa, it's about the playoffs. So last year at this point, they were 19-6-2. So they had a better record last season than this year. 2019-2020, a Stanley Cup year, they were 14-10-3. What's interesting about Tampa that year was they had really let off the gas. 2018-2019, they were 19-7-1. And it felt like they were kind of pacing themselves a little bit in 2019-2020 after being swept in the first round by the Columbus Blue Jackets. So they've learned. And this is a team that's going to be very dangerous. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. They did lose their last game, but they won 4 out of 5 on the road trip. So when I moved them up on the power rankings this week, that's what it was about. They won 4 out of 5 on a road trip, and the loss was at the end of the road trip. I could understand if they just kind of had a rough game. So we might as well talk about the road trip, right? So first, it started with a win at Boston, 3-2. Boston, pretty darn good at home. Stamkos records the winning goal at 1:31 of overtime. The next game, they went to Philadelphia and plastered them yet again, 7-1, the final score of that one. Tampa would love more games against Philadelphia. Philadelphia would probably be opposed to that. So Elliott was the first star in that one. Elliott, I think, has played relatively well for the Tampa Bay Lightning, even though the stats would tell you it's been shaky at times. I think he's played okay. And in the 3-2 win against Montreal, that was the one Montreal should have won, and then they just didn't. They allowed 2 goals from Tampa with 2:09 left. So from 2:09 left, where it's 2-1, we might win this, to 3-2 loss. And so Tampa Bay fights back in that. Corey Perry played a role in that. And, becomes a feel-good story for Tampa. So they move on to Toronto. They won 5-3 in that game against Toronto. Stamkos, a goal and 3 assists for Stamkos. Palat, 2 goals and 1 assist for him. And of course, because it's another year in Tampa, there's already discussions about what's going to happen with Palat at the end of the year. Is he going to be out because they're going to have cap problems? It's the cap argument we're going to have every single year with Tampa, I swear. And then they go into Ottawa, and they had a stinker. They lost 4-0. And what stands out to me in that one is that both Hedman and Stamkos were -2 in that game. They just weren't with it. And so it was a combination of Tampa maybe taking the game lightly, maybe just being tired on a long road trip, and Ottawa coming out with the mentality of, we've got to beat these guys. One thing with Tampa is this. So they've won the last 2 Stanley Cups. Teams will always bring their A game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. They don't get easy games. This is not a team that gets taken lightly on any turn, and teams playing against them know, hey, if we can beat Tampa, that's saying something. So Stamkos has had a bit of a rejuvenation. I know that when I've talked about cap problems in the past, there have been those in the Tampa fandom that have said, well, if they just trade Stamkos, they're fine. They could trade Stamkos and they're good. Stamkos is what's keeping this team humming right now. 26 games, 13 goals, 19 assists, 32 points. He has elevated his game as we knew he could, but with all the injury problems he's had over the last few years and everything that's gone on with him, it is a bit of a surprise to see him this far above a point per game, where a 100-point season might be possible if he can stay healthy. Hedman, 27 games, 5 goals, 22 assists, 27 points. Last season was a challenging one for Hedman, and I say that even though they won the Stanley Cup. Hedman didn't win the Norris last year. He had some shaky times during last season. This year, he appears to be back. He's saying he's 100% healthy for the first time in a while, and that's bad news for the rest of the NHL. Victor Hedman is an absolutely fantastic talent on the blue line. I still think likely the best defenseman in the NHL. I think 2 seasons ago, that was kind of accepted as fact. But now you've got most likely Fox and Makar right in there with him. It depends on what you want. If you want that dynamic, offensive, fantastic player who's good defensively, you've got Makar. If you want maybe the best setup man in the National Hockey League on the blue line, I think that's Fox. Fox has tremendously high number of points on that Rangers team. And then you've got Hedman, who's really solid all around. He provides the points. He's good defensively. And Fox is very good defensively, too. I do not envy people voting for Norris Trophy winners this year because that's just those three. That's not mentioning Roman Josi either, who won the Norris Trophy a couple seasons ago. Killorn, 27 games, 8 goals, 15 assists, 23 points. To me, he's in the category of he's still here. There have been rumors over the last 2 years, again, because of salary cap constraints and problems Tampa has staying under the cap, that Killorn could be the one that gets sacrificed. They could take Killorn and a pick and move him in order to get further under the cap. They haven't done it. Killorn's had a very good year. Palat, as stated, now he's being talked about as a guy who probably goes. He's a UFA this coming summer. 27 games, 9 goals, 9 assists, 18 points. This might be his best season. This might be Palat's best season. Cirelli, 25 games, 8 goals, 9 assists, 17 points. With him out of the lineup, they still managed to cobble together a couple of points there. And he should be back, I would think, for the next game. And again, it's an upper body injury. He may return tomorrow. Sergachev, 25 games, 2 goals, 11 assists, 13 points. Has been very solid, very good. And probably gets underrated as an NHL defenseman because he's on the same team as Hedman. When you play on the same team as a Victor Hedman, you're going to be underrated. Just ask Devon Toews right now in Colorado because everybody is Makar all the time. But there's Toews. And I'm not saying that Makar is Marcia and Toews is Jan, but I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that Sergachev could be Jan, and it could be McDonough, who's got 2 goals and 8 assists in 27 games. And then you've got Corey Perry. Corey Perry went through the longest drought to start a season in his entire career. And watching him, you would think, I guess the scoring's gone. Recent games have shown the scoring's back. 27 games now, 6 goals, 5 assists, 11 points. Would not be surprised to see him end up with 20 goals. There's certain eras where you put on a team's jersey and your game just gets better. And players just come in and they just get better. 5 years ago, we saw that 4 years ago, because it was the first year for Vegas, where every player of the Vegas, whether they claimed them on waivers, brought them up from the minors, or whatever they did, all of them succeeded. And right now with Tampa, we're kind of seeing that too, right? And I know it's something I remember happening with Boston when I was much, much younger, but it is weird how that happens. Certain players go to certain teams and they'll be like, hey, this works pretty well. I know the Oilers in the 80s had that too, where guys would go there and look like their careers were kind of floundering, and then they just take off because you're with a really good team. And you can learn some really good habits with a really good team, and your game gets better. And so I think for Corey Perry, I think he is enjoying it in Tampa. Would I be surprised if he signs on for another year with them? Nope. I wouldn't be surprised if his time in Tampa gets extended. Because unlike in Dallas and in Montreal, I think this may end up with him winning a Stanley Cup. Maybe. Fingers crossed on that one. Then you've got Kucherov, who's only played 3 games this year. I think I've worn this jersey more during the regular season this year than he has. 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. Kucherov, of course, misses all of last regular season. He is due to be out until, it looks like, end of December is the earliest. Mid-January should be the latest that he comes back. And so Kucherov being out hasn't hurt their attack as much as what one might have expected. And Braden Point, 16 games, 7 goals, 6 assists, 13 points. The interesting thing to me with Point was I don't think he was playing his best hockey yet. I don't think the start to the season was Braden Point being as fantastic as he was in last year's playoffs. I do wonder if injury might... I mean, it doesn't allow you to heal up so much, but these guys have played a lot of hockey. The Tampa Bay Lightning over the last 2 calendar years have played a ton of hockey. And so injuries don't really surprise me. I'm actually kind of surprised that as many veterans as they have, that they're dealing with more of them, to be honest, because they've played a lot of hockey. Radish has been quite the story. 26 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. You've got Kachuk, 19 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. They're playing with Colton, and that line has worked out pretty well. And it is not the dynamic line that the third line was last year, all three players from that third line being gone, but it's shown that organizational depth in Tampa is fantastic. And Kachuk and Radish playing together when they were kids, and they're together now. It's something that Tampa's had going back a long way, right? I think of when Brad Richards was being drafted, and a teammate being drafted, and this is something that can be really smart. You're drafting guys who've played together since they were kids, and it can be a smart move. They work well together. You don't have to worry about. All you have to worry about is making sure they're playing your system, and then you just send them out on the ice, and they already know where the other guy's going to be and all that, and it can be a lot of fun to watch, right? I would imagine it's fun for the coach to watch too, because it'd be easier to coach them, because it'd be like, all right, so Boris and Taylor, they know each other. They know each other well from their childhood too, so I'm not worried about Kachuk and Radish. They'll get this all figured out, and so yeah, it might make it easier for them. Vasilevsky has been nothing short of fantastic. 14, 4-3, 927 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. So Vasilevsky, Hedman, Stamkos are the 3 pillars right now for this team, with Point and Kucherov both being out of the lineup. So Elliott, I know, gets some flack, and there's some debate about how good he is as a backup, but he's been 3-2-1, 903 save percentage. I think the fact that he's 500 is good. Now, has Elliott been the best backup in the league? No. But again, with cap constraints being where they're at, there's only so much Tampa can do. So when we look at their goal scoring, 3.22 goals for per game, that's 9th in the National Hockey League. So again, that's good considering how long Kucherov's been out, and with Point out as well, and of course Cirelli and all this. Goals against per game, 2.67 goals against per game. That's 10th in the National Hockey League. And so while they're right near the top of the league, they're not playing their best hockey yet. And that's kind of the scary thing right now if you're watching Tampa. They're 17-6-4. I think they can get better. Their power play is a good example, 18.5%. That might be where they miss Kucherov the most, right? They're 19th in the NHL there. Penalty killing might be where they're missing Point, 80% overall, 19th in the National Hockey League. So special teams are not helping them. And if you're a Tampa fan, you're probably saying, yeah. There have been games where their power play just doesn't look Tampa-like. But again, with the amount of just the key guys being out, it makes sense, right? So currently out, you have Chernak, who's listed as day-to-day with lower body. As I said, Kucherov is end of December, mid-January in all likelihood. Braden Point, 4 to 6 weeks. It's seen as December 31st being the earliest that he's going to return. So he's end of December, mid-January too. So Kucherov and Point should both be back by the middle of January. So a month from now, we might be talking about a very different situation for Tampa, and they could actually be better. Jamel Smith is out indefinitely, lower body injury. Jamel Smith, a fourth-line pick, or fourth-line player, not pick. It's drafted by somebody else even. But Cirelli may return tomorrow, and that should absolutely help. Did they have a perfect road trip? No. They did lose the game against Ottawa. Should they have lost the game against Montreal? Maybe. I don't like to argue that too much, but again, when I'm doing for instance, the power rankings and all that, I put more stock into the wins against Boston, Philly, and Toronto than the one in Montreal because of the comeback factor in that. So they've shown that they can come back and win, which is something that their brethren in Florida, the Florida Panthers, have been able to do a lot. And so they're dangerous. There's really no area that's weak. And I mentioned this in the St. Louis video. I'll mention this here too. When you can call guys up from the AHL and that transition is seamless. Barry Boulay is a good example. Barry Boulay is not on the board. I like Barry Boulay. I'm guessing his defense is suspect, so they don't want him in the bottom 6. And his offense isn't strong enough to push anybody else out of the top 6. And so that's the only explanation I can find for the fact that he gets waived by Tampa, goes to Seattle. Seattle waives him. He goes back to Tampa, and now he's in the AHL. The scoring is there. And again, this is a team that finds a way. They find a way. And we'll see whether or not it continues on this path for the rest of the season. But again, when they get Kucherov and Point back, this team could be really scary. This could be, 13, 14, 15 game winning streak kind of scary. But we'll see, because again, it's unpredictable. Can Stamkos stay healthy for a full season? There's a lot riding on certain players being able to stay in the lineup and all that. And when you get Kucherov and Point back, you don't want to be losing key guys at the same time. And very often with hockey, that can happen. So, Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the big question I have is this. Are they on track to defend their Stanley Cup championship? I picked them before the season to win the Stanley Cup because they've won the last two, and I figure, yeah, they could win a third. So are they going to be able to get to that level of winning that third Stanley Cup? Or are they candidates then for a first round loss because of all of the hockey they've played over the last 2 years? Again, it's important, and it's something that the New York Islanders talked about when they lost that Stanley Cup final in 1983 or 1984 against Edmonton after beating Edmonton in 1983, was just the amount of hockey they had played through those 4 seasons wore them down. And it may have shortened careers in terms of how many regular seasons some guys played, because that's basically a full season of playoff hockey mixed in with 4 years of regular season hockey. Tampa's looking at having played basically 2.5 seasons worth of games, short period of time. I know it's a 56-game schedule last year, but it was an intense schedule. And then you had a full playoff run after that, and now we're right back at it. And it was the shortest turnaround for an offseason that we've seen, I think, ever. Pretty sure that'd be ever. It was a short off season. So kudos to them for being able to get it done, and we'll see how far it can go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.